I'm going to show you something today that will stir your emotions, that will make you angry, that would cause you to be uncomfortable. And we need to dig into this because it's what I've been warning about for years. You came here for the truth, so let me unveil that for you. If you will allow me, I'm going to show you a secret report that was made public that we need to dig into because it highlights exactly what I have been talking about. It is precisely what I've been looking at, and I am not comfortable with how accurate I have been. Let me show you something. Secret RCMP report warns Canadians may revolt once they realize how broke they are. This is coming from the National Post, okay? This is a Canadian news agency, reputable news agency. They were able to pull this report. I'll show you it in just a second. Right from the get-go, the report authors warn that whatever Canada's current situation, it will probably deteriorate further in the next 5 years. That's a quote. I read the report. It's not long. Why is it not long? Because the vast majority of it is redacted. I mean, that's what they do. They redact basically everything. All of these government agencies do that, whether it's in Canada, the US, or anywhere else. What are we in for? I've been talking about this for years, and plain and simple, the economic conditions that we are experiencing today, we're saying it's a high inflation. We are saying it's a little tough now. We got to get a second job just to be able to deal with what we had before. The RCMP themselves are suggesting that it's actually going to get much worse. I've been saying that, yes, but to read it in black and white is shocking to me. Here is what I wrote on the back. I put this on the back of my book, my second book. Soon the earth will rumble under the heels of the angry mobs. I put that, of course, it's in the book as well, but I put it on the back because I knew this would be the theme. And I've covered this countless times, many, many times over the years, talking about civil unrest and the eruption that will result when people have had enough. And we are already in the midst of this. Now, I need to get through this as much as I can, and I will include the report itself. The links will be under the description. I got not just the article, because they just make it easy. They put all the quotes in here, but I'm going to give you the actual report itself. I'll show you that in just a second. A secret RCMP report is warning that the federal government, that Canada may descend into civil unrest once citizens realize the hopelessness of their economic situation. It's like I'm hearing myself talk. The coming period of recession will accelerate the decline in living standards that the younger generations have already witnessed compared to earlier generations. For example, many Canadians under 35 are unlikely to ever be able to buy a place to live. I have talked about this. How many times? Over and over again. I've said this. I've said all of these things. The young generation has no chance. No chance. Even if prices were to come down by 50%, there still would be no chance. We have gone into a territory we can't walk back. It's impossible now. Not to mention the debt circumstance, not to mention all the money printing they're doing as it stands today. Look further. The report, labeled secret, is intended as a piece of special operational information to be distributed only within the RCMP and among decision makers in the federal government. What I wanted to highlight here, for those who don't know, RCMP, think of this like a higher level police inside of Canada, kind of like an FBI sort of in a sense. But this is something that is labeled secret. So we know that they did not want this distributed. And you could see here, it's like the Freedom of Information Act request, same sort of situation. This came through, and we are allowed to see some of it. Some of it, of course, not all of it. Describing itself as an introduction, in the introduction as a scanning exercise, and you could see it's got significant impact and so on. They do cover some other stuff, as I'll show you. But this is where it all begins, okay? For me, I believe that the problem starts when we can see the devaluation of the currency and understand that all the other things are piled up on top of that. The central core theme is that you have a group of people at the center of this all that control the value of your money. I know that there are others on YouTube who will say, end the Fed, end the Fed. And meanwhile, they support the Fed. Meanwhile, they point the finger at the government when they are but a part of it. The central bankers, once you understand the history and how these central banks, in particular the Federal Reserve, was created, you should understand who started all of this. It is so important to realize that, and I'm not too happy with what some others have suggested to the public. It is a crime, in my opinion, to lie in such a way to people for such a serious issue. Okay? All right. They're talking about the erosion of trust and basically saying, look, people don't trust the government. I wonder why. I wonder why they don't trust the institutions. I wonder why people are disenfranchised. I wonder why there's more polarization than ever before. Really. Because of the decay we've experienced, people are pushed to the edge. And when we see that, we get more extreme events occurring. It should not come as a surprise to anyone what we've seen. This is the report itself. Look, see all that white space? That's all redacted. That's all redacted. They have that right there, by the way. I was saying erosion of trust. The past 7 years have seen marked social and political polarization in the Western world. Yes, obviously, but at the top. Okay, let's start here. In the words of Emmanuel Macron, the president of France, we are about to see the end of abundance. Now, these words, these are the things I'll put in my subject, in the titles of the videos, and I get, all kinds of hate. Oh my goodness, you're fearmonger, all this stuff. That's literally the president of France saying that. These things that I say, the civil unrest, I'm actually quoting what I pull from reports just like this and have been doing so since 2011. I am not pleased about my accuracy all throughout. I just wish that it was all wrong. Okay, let's go. Economic forecasts for the next 5 years are beyond bleak. They're beyond bleak. It's always unclear exactly how economies will perform, but this period of recession will likely have a negative impact on the social and political world as well. Anybody who views this channel knows this already, but when I'm reading this, it's like it's giving me this weird vibe. Popular resentment. The coming period of recession will also accelerate the decline in living standards that the younger generations have already witnessed compared to early generations. For example, many Canadians under 35 unlikely to ever be able to buy a place to live. And they're saying the fallout from this decline in living standards will be exacerbated by the fact that the difference between the extremes of wealth is greater now in developed countries than it has been at any time in several generations. So basically, people that are alive today have never seen this before, and this report states, and I agree with it, the conditions will deteriorate in the next 5 years. This is extreme. And by the way, 5 years, they may have reasons to say they use the number 5 years. 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, it's down trajectory. And knowing that, what questions do you have to start asking to be able to make sure that you were well prepared? That's what you need to do. You don't just read this and say, oh my goodness, I'm so scared. You read this, you say, okay, that sucks. Now what am I going to do? I can't believe I'm reading this, but it's here. These are the things that I've been seeing all along and been showing you all along. Look, average asking rental prices reached $2,200. This is in Canada. You can see the residential price. I'm just trying to show you it's been going up. It's Canada, it's US, it's everywhere, right? Basically, the price has been skyrocketing all throughout, particular Canada, where if we use the extreme examples of Vancouver and Toronto, where the large percentage of the population is, that's an even more extreme circumstance. We have this pod living. This one I think was California, and you can see this girl. I don't know if you can tell what's going on here. So this girl is inside of a pod and she pays, I think it was $1,200 a month for this little pod. So shared facility, and she basically sleeps in a box. All right. This is what's happening. Super high prices and your living standards deteriorate. Pod living, number one. Working, co-work space. I just pulled this up. This is Orlando, just random. Okay. People will live amongst a bunch of strangers. They will work in co-work spaces because, hey, can't have your own office. Ride sharing because you can't have your own car. You see what's happening here? We're losing the ability to afford the basics. Where we live, car, energy, everything. We need to compact ourselves. Now, look, hey, you could be into minimalism, you could do all that. That's fine. That's totally fine. But if you have to embrace minimalism because you can't afford a standard average lifestyle, there's something wrong there. And when we start to realize what's happening, the group at the center, the nucleus of this problem is the Federal Reserve, or central banks, as we say it broadly. What do? Well, they devalue the currency. They create bubbles intentionally. They knew that. In the mid-2000s, it was already very apparent that they were creating a bubble inside of real estate. They knew this. They didn't want to increase the interest rates, though. We don't want to pop the bubble. We just want to make it seem like we're being, prudent. We're doing things right. All right. Then in 2020, they started buying mortgage-backed securities. They started buying corporate bonds of companies like Apple, one of the biggest companies in the world. Do you not see a problem with that? Mortgage-backed securities supposedly supporting real estate in a time in which real estate was going up faster than ever. This shows us that they are trying to create this divide in between the rich and the poor. The conditions will deteriorate, and we will see this group come in, swoop in as the savior. And those people out there saying, end the Fed, they'll actually be cheering them on. And they'll actually be ensuring that they sneak around it and make sure that, yeah, end the Fed, but in reality, they're there to distract you from what's really going on. This is incredible that I've seen this. I don't want to just go on forever. I'm just showing you what I found, what I have highlighted here. This is a report, secret report, made public, half of it anyway. If that's what the non-redacted sections have, imagine what they said where it's redacted. This is an issue, of course, no matter where you live. I'm sure all governments basically recognize the same thing. And so we need to prepare for ourselves. I've got lots of information in my playlists on YouTube, totally free. I've got Compass on my website, totally free. I've got my live sessions where I help people in a very small group setting over Zoom. And if you're interested in that, there's a link in the description at the top. You got to be aware of this. Share this with your friends and family, because I think this is incredibly important, and we all need to understand how bad things are about to get. Thank you. I'll see you tomorrow. Take care.